Ah, pots. They're one of landscape's greatest achievements. It means you can put a garden where you don't have a garden bed. And I reckon one of the best kind of pots to use is your classic terracotta. They're timeless. We've been using them for years. But on the ground, that doesn't look like much. I'm thinking we put it in the sky. This idea gives you a vertical garden, but you don't need a wall to put it on. Now, what I'm thinking is something that looks a little bit like a bookshelf, but if you put these guys on top, they're just going to blow off. So what we need to do is make some holes and sit the pot in the pine. To mark the circle, I'm just going to use one of the pots and trace the outside. But if I was to cut away that line, the pot would fall straight through the hole. So I'm going to come in 5 mil from that line. The piece of timber that I can take out of that hole, I can use it to trace around for all the other ones. Now, you can get hole saws that'll do a hole this big, but because these are so robust, they rip into the pine and they kick a little bit. What I like to do is just drill a pilot hole and use a jigsaw with a fine blade on it. It's a lot neater and a lot easier. Now you don't have to do any measurements. You've got your template, so if you put it over the top, every one of the shelves will look exactly the same. We've got our 4 shelves, but how are we going to keep them up? Well, what I'm going to do is drill a hole in each corner and suspend it from the beam of my veranda. The hardest job by far is getting this level and tied off. You don't want it to fall down on the next one and ruin the whole job. What you could do is tie a knot underneath each of these 4 points where it hits your shelf, or what I'm going to do is get a good-sized zip tie, come underneath, pinch it together, and create a bit of a pattern going down the sides with the rope as well. Now, I've mixed and matched my plants, but you could put the ones that want less water up the top because they are going to drip through and get more water as they work down. And these guys that are hanging down, you can cut them off because there's a fair bit of weight here if you like, but if you're worried about it blowing around in the wind, you can just tie it off down to the ground as well. And just like that, you too can have a great terracotta feature for your veranda. We've been bringing life to my veranda with the humble terracotta pot. Now, let's see what else we can do. I've had such great success with this vertical garden, I've been inspired. I've gone a little potty. Now, pots traditionally are on the ground. I'm going to work with that, but I'm not going to just keep these like normal pots. I'm going to make a dome and a ball out of them. All you need to do is glue one to the other and continue. Now, these 12-centimetre terracotta pots, believe it or not, are only $1.50 each. So to make a dome, it costs you about $30 in pots, but it looks fantastic in the garden. You know you've got a perfect circle when the top edge and the bottom edge are both touching on all of your pots. So that dictates the size, depending on the size of your pot. Now, to keep them in place short term, I'm going to use a little glue gun. And to keep me in place long term, some fast-acting liquid nails. Now, I've got to admit, these joints aren't that attractive. So what I've done is just wet my finger, and run it down there, neaten the whole thing up, and then I can give it a coat of paint the same colour as the terracotta. The reality is that this is just like the arch you'll see in brickwork. It's really strong because it's keyed in. Everything that wants to fall on itself, so it's holding its own weight. If you wanted to move it around, well, it's probably a 2- or 3-man job trying to slide a piece of ply underneath it and then finding a nice spot for it in the garden. One this size, I'd just leave as a dome, but I also want a ball. And for that, I'm not going to use a pot as big. I'm going to go the next size down, 8 centimetres. And what you need to do is make 2 halves, just like an Easter egg, and then put them together. And the reason why I've left this void here is when I flip it over, it's going to sit on this whole edge here. Wish me luck. Ooh. Now, you can lift it up again and glue that joint and make it one piece, but no one's going to know that it's 2, and if you keep it 2, it's easier to move around. So, you take your common garden variety old planter, Fill it with fresh ideas and you've got 3 cracking features that won't cost you pots of money.